This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alex Masfair. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode and to be continuing to listen to the GSMC podcast. We really do appreciate it here at the GSMC Sports Podcast team. Before I start talking anything sports, I want to remind you all to subscribe to the podcast so you always get those alerts and notifications on your phone, on your laptop, on your watch, on whatever device you might be listening to this on. Again, you want to subscribe to the podcast so you get those alerts and notifications so you can get those alerts on when we drop a new episode here at the GSMC Sports Podcast. Again, you want to subscribe to the podcast on whatever device you are listening to this on so you can be one of the first people to know and listen to a new episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast when we release one here at the GSMC Sports Podcast team. Also, do not forget to leave us a 5-star review or just a positive review in general. It would give us a big boost of confidence as well as letting us know that you guys are enjoying the content and the discussion points that we are talking about on this show, on this podcast. We would really appreciate it again. And we would love to know if you guys are just enjoying what we're talking about, the way we're talking about it, the way we're delivering our points. However you guys would want this show, sort of changed or to improve, we'd love to hear that. But if you could leave us a 5-star review or just a positive review in general, we would really appreciate that. Please do that on whatever podcasting app or website you are listening to this on. And finally, do not also forget to follow us on all social media platforms. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram is where you can find us. We would love to interact with you guys more on there. We can talk about, the show. We can talk about sports. We can talk about the NBA Finals. We can talk about anything you guys want over there on social media, but you want to follow us there so you can interact with us more. And we'd love to interact with you guys more on there. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram is where you can find us. Do not forget to follow us on all social media platforms. Again, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I hope wherever you are and however you may be listening, you and your family are happy and healthy during these extremely trying times in the world. Today, we have a fantastic show for you all today. At the very end of the episode, I will be previewing, I think, the best Thursday night game we might get. I don't know about all year, but definitely so far. So today, when you're listening to this, it's Thursday. The game tonight between the Buccaneers and the Chicago Bears. We have a rematch of Tom Brady and Nick Foles. There's some history there dating back all the way to that Super Bowl that Philadelphia obviously won over New England. Both of the guys are on different teams now. Both teams are 3-1. Both of these teams, I believe, will be playoff teams. I think this is one of the best Thursday night football matches we'll probably get all year. Definitely the best Thursday night football matchup we've gotten since probably the Bengals versus the Browns game. 100% on that. Also, later on in the episode, I'm going to be giving you my Week 4 takeaways. Pretty much everything, the major points that I'm taking away. NFL teams are a quarter of the way through the season. Which teams are contenders, which teams are pretenders. I'll talk about teams like the Cowboys, the Bucks, the Packers, the Dolphins is a Tua time already. That's been a quarter way through the season, and he's yet to be the only major rookie quarterback to play. Burrow's obviously getting minutes. So is Justin Herbert. I'll talk about probably both of their teams as well. My biggest Big 4 takeaways, Week 4 through 4 weeks takeaways, I should say, through a quarter of the season. That's coming on later on in the episode as well. Also later on in the episode, there was a very interesting quote by a lot of NBA sources, including Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer, who said that it appears that the Miami Heat are the free agent destination to beat for everybody else, for guys like Giannis, Oladipo, Bradley Beal, anybody who becomes available on the market. I'll talk about why the Miami Heat have the chances to become the next dynasty in the NBA, besides the teams like the Clippers and Lakers, who we all think will be good for a really long time. I'll talk about why the Miami Heat should be in that discussion later on in the episode. But of course, we're going to start off with the NBA Finals. Speaking of the Miami Heat, the Los Angeles Lakers are up 3-1 3-1 currently on the Miami Heat with game, 5 being tomorrow when you're listening to this. The Lakers have the chance to clinch another championship in their great history, and LeBron James has the chance to win his 4th championship of his career, would be up there with the greats. A lot of guys won 5 or more. Can he get to 5? I'm not sure, but 4. You got to get to 4 before you can get to 5. And the Lakers have switched their jerseys to the Black Mamba jerseys, which they said they would be wearing Game 2 and Game 7. They're now wearing at Game 5 on Friday. They want to win in those jerseys. The Lakers are undefeated when wearing those jerseys, intimidating if you're the Miami Heat. Couple different things here. I will be talking about the Heat in this episode later, so I don't want this segment to be a lot on them. They've been in every game. It's been tough for them, obviously. I really do believe the Miami Heat had a chance in this series. Of course, they still do have a chance. Teams have come back down 3-1 in this playoffs. The Denver Nuggets have come back down 3-1 twice. LeBron James, ironically, is the only player, or really, I guess the only team, if you consider him with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was obviously the main reason why the Cavaliers came back to be the first team to come down from 3-1 in the NBA Finals. So it is not impossible. And 2020 is a weird year, so you never know. If 2020 ended with a team blowing a 3-1 lead, it would not surprise me at all at this point. I really thought the Heat had a chance in this last game. That's the game I'll talk about mostly. It was the most recent game. That's the one I thought they had. If the Miami Heat could have tied this series 2-2, I think you're looking at a whole new conversation today. Then are the Lakers on the ropes? The Heat have all the momentum. It's a brand new series with it being tied and all at 2-2. Of course, the Lakers did not allow that to happen. And credit to the Lakers for winning 102-96. For the Heat that game, Butler had another amazing game, 22-10-9. Adebayo, 15-7. He finally came back. If you didn't know, he's been dealing with a neck and shoulder injury. He came back, didn't look exactly like himself, but looked good enough. His minutes were weird. He only played 33 minutes. I think he needed to play more than that. And Hero had 21-7-3. Again, and Robinson was 17. So if you're the Miami Heat, I think you take that stat line. I think when you hear all these stats, maybe you hope for more BAM points or more BAM assists. But when you see this, I think you would take this. But then, of course, on the otother side, Anthony Davis with 22-9-4, LeBron 28-12-8, KCP with 15, Danny Green. He's been really good this series, by the way. KCP, I think, has confidently been the Lakers' third best player. I think for moments it's been maybe Markieff Morris. For moments it's maybe been Rondo. For moments it's maybe been Kuzma. For moments it's maybe been Dwight Howard. But I think consistently KCP has been the Lakers' third best player, maybe all season. I don't know about all season, but definitely this series. I want to get into more of the Lakers, but for the Heat, can they come back? Yes. Teams have done it before, and if any team is going to do it, it's going to be this resilient Miami Heat group. Bamley is getting stronger and healthier as the series goes on, so maybe if they can steal one on Friday, 3-2, I think the chatter picks back up. If they can just force a Game 7, anything can happen. So if I'm the Miami Heat, I'm not necessarily looking at it as, win the next 3 games. I'm looking at it as win this next one. One at a time, get one, on Friday, tomorrow when you're listening to this. Get one, I believe, on Sunday, and then see what happens maybe on Tuesday. Do I expect that to happen? Not necessarily. Again, the Lakers are undefeated in these Mamba uniforms. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they just got it done on Friday. I don't know who I necessarily like on Friday, but I'd have to probably pick the Lakers just the way that they're going. What I will give credit to Frank Vogel is because I do believe Eric Spoelstra is the better coach in this series 100%. But maybe it's LeBron James or maybe it's Anthony Davis, but there have been a couple of calls from a coaching perspective in this series that have really, really given me hope in Frank Vogel and really been, I think good calls from Frank Vogel. They have figured out a way to beat the zone. They have been figuring out ways to neutralize the Heat zone, which is what the Heat have been pretty much riding. Defensively for a couple of series now. They did it really well against the Bucks, did it really well against the Celtics. I think they're still doing it well. I just think that the high IQ players that the Los Angeles Lakers possess, as well as Frank Vogel, who isn't the best coach in the world, but also isn't, a stiff of a coach. He's not a bad coach by any means. They figured out ways. Those high IQ players, guys like AD, LeBron James is probably the smartest player in the league, and I bet Rajon Rondo, he might be up. He's also up there with guys who just have phenomenal basketball IQ. I bet Rajon Rondo coaches one day. All of those guys really are figuring out ways to break down the zone of the Miami Heat, and they're really finding ways to get mismatches. And I think Frank Vogel, again, maybe it is LeBron, and everyone's going to give credit to LeBron, but LeBron has had some good coaches, right? Eric Spoelstra is a phenomenal coach. LeBron had got coached by him. I think Frank Vogel is a pretty good coach. I would actually put him as the second best coach LeBron's ever had. I'd put him over Ty Lue, personally. Again, Maybe it is LeBron James breaking down the zone and everything like that, or Rondo or AD. But there's been ways where the Lakers have been able to exploit mismatches. There have been ways where there's this Heat team that is very switchable, guys with Andre Iguodala, Bam Adebayo, Jay Crowder, where LeBron and AD have consistently found a way to get mismatches. How many times have we seen in this series LeBron James driving on Tyler Hero or driving on Duncan Robinson instead of Jimmy Butler, Jay Crowder, Andre Iguodala, Bam Adebayo? How many times have we seen a smaller guy matched up on Anthony Davis instead of a guy like Bam Adebayo or Kelly Olynyk, right? It's just been really, really good for AD and LeBron. And I do want to talk about later in the segment who is the best teammate LeBron James has ever had. I personally think, man, it's tough. For this series going forward, I think the Lakers have this locked up. I don't think they're going to blow a 3-1 lead. I don't think LeBron James is capable of doing that. I think just LeBron James alone can win you a game, so I don't think he will allow that to happen. If I had to guess, I would probably say Lakers in 6. It would not surprise me if the Heat came out fighting with an extra day of rest for Bam Adebayo, an extra day to game plan, an extra day for Eric Spoelstra to get everything together, where they come out and they find a way to win on Friday. A close game. They make it 3-2. The chatter starts up again. Oh, is LA going to blow a 3-1 lead? And then LeBron puts his foot down on Sunday and wins this one in 6. That's my personal prediction. I do believe LeBron James will win his 4th NBA championship. We need to talk about who is the Finals MVP of this series. Because it's a legitimate debate. Usually every year, every time LeBron James has ever won a championship, he's clearly been the best player on the floor throughout. But I don't necessarily think he's having a phenomenal series against the Miami Heat. Again, going into the series, I told you, Eric Spoelstra knows him inside and out. He's also the best coach LeBron has ever had. He knows his strengths and weaknesses. This organization, Pat Riley, knows LeBron's strengths and weaknesses. Again, they are very switchable. Bam Adebayo, when he's been playing, has done a good job on LeBron James. He's actually probably had, I think, more possessions guarding LeBron than AD, which is interesting to me. But what LeBron James has been doing in this series has been phenomenal. His turnovers are very high, though, for this series. I believe he had 8 in Game 2. I think he had another 5 or 6 in Game, what was it? No, he had 5, I believe, in Game, or no, 8 in Game 3, and I think he had about 5 or 6 in Game 4. So they're getting to him, and he hasn't had the greatest stat line. He hasn't had the greatest games. He did not hit a 3 in the fourth quarter of the last game. But Anthony Davis, I think, has been the most important player for the LA Lakers this entire series. Because, again, there's only one game where Anthony Davis did not play well in this series, and that's the game they lost. So if Anthony Davis plays well, it appears that the Lakers are absolutely unstoppable in terms for going against the Miami Heat. They've just had no response to him. Anthony Davis's work on the glass, his work in the mid-range game, his work from the three-point game. AD has been absolutely unstoppable. He hit tough fadeaways last night, or 2 nights ago. He hit a lot of hard mid-range shots as well. Took guys like Bam Adebayo to the rim. What he does from an offensive rebounding standpoint against the zone is just absolutely criminal. He absolutely obliterates the zone from that aspect. And he also does the traditional sitting at the free throw line, asking for the ball, getting the ball from there and then going up for a mid-range shot. AD is really surprising with his mid-range game. That's kind of his favorite shot to take, is like that long to intermediate mid-range game, and he's not great at it. That's not his best shot. His best shot is obviously everything around the rim, and then his three-point shot is his second best shot, and his worst shot is actually that intermediate mid-range thing. So going into the series, if you're the Heat, you probably wanted him to take that, but AD has been lights out, has not been missing from there, and there's a legitimate argument that Anthony Davis should win Finals MVP, and I'll tell you why. Not just because of the points, not just because of the rebounding that he's been doing, but also from a defensive standpoint. But quickly, here's the stats for LeBron James versus Anthony Davis, what they're all averaging, obviously, game log-wise, right? So LeBron James in the NBA Finals had, let's see here, he had 28 points. So for the first game, LeBron had 25 points, then 33 points for LeBron, and then 25 points, and then 28 points. For Anthony Davis, during these NBA, again, this is the NBA Finals stretch, he has had, I'm trying to find it here, he's had 34, 32, 15, and 22. Again, the points, I believe, would go, I don't know the exact average, but it's pretty close. Rebounds and assists, I think, would go to LeBron James. I don't know about rebounding, but definitely assists would go to LeBron James. But here's the thing that Anthony Davis has done, and specifically in this last game, which in my opinion the series is not over. If this series goes another game or two and LeBron James is the one who finishes it out and also has a good game or two, right? If the Heat do extend this to 6 and maybe AD doesn't play well on Friday, I think LeBron could recapture this Finals MVP trophy. But if the series ends on Friday and Anthony Davis has another 33, 11 and 1 or 2 assists or whatever, right? I would give the Finals MVP trophy to Anthony Davis. I don't know if they will. The narrative of LeBron James, the prowess of LeBron James, and don't get me wrong, LeBron James will still put up near triple-doubles every single game, so if you give it to LeBron James, it's not like this overbearing, oh my God, you gave it to the worst player, not the right guy. I think a lot of people would disagree with it, guys like Skip Bayless, guys like myself. But I don't think it would be as much of a backlash if you gave it to like a different guy or anything like that. But Anthony Davis, what he did against Jimmy Butler in this most recent game is why I would give it to him. The game before, the game that the Miami Heat have stole was because of Jimmy Butler's 42-point or 40-point triple-double that was on LeBron James. Nobody guarded Jimmy Butler more that game than LeBron James. So again, that was the whole point, is that LeBron James kicked Jimmy Butler kicked LeBron's butt from start to finish in that game. He's the one with the 40-point triple-double. First player ever to out-rebound, outscore, and out-assist LeBron James in a playoff game. So that was all directed towards LeBron James. He added LeBron James and went after him, right? This game, LeBron James does not guard Jimmy Butler. Instead, Anthony Davis demands that Frank Vogel puts him on him, and Jimmy Butler was not as effective, specifically in the paint. Every time he would get to the paint, Anthony Davis's big body would be there. He blocked him a couple of times, including there was a stretch where Jimmy went up for a layup to, I think, cut it to 4 or 5 and kind of stay in the game. AD blocked it, and then I'm pretty sure he hit the 3 on the other end on that same position, the dagger. And that, for me, that sequence really solidified. I believe Anthony Davis should be the Finals MVP of this series so far. What he did defensively against Jimmy Butler, they pretty much played Butler like Ben Simmons. They dared him to shoot because all Jimmy Butler was doing the game before that, the game that the Miami Heat stole on his 40-point triple-double, it was all paint points and mid-range shots. He did not even attempt a single 3. So what they did was they played him like Ben Simmons. They put the biggest guy that they had, Anthony Davis, the best defender in the league, arguably, Anthony Davis, on him and said, come attack me in the paint. And it did not work out for Jimmy Butler. He got to 22 points, a lot of free throws and stuff. There was a sequence where the game really changed. Jimmy Butler had a 3, right? Could have hit a 3 for the lead at that point. He misses because he doesn't want to go attack, Anthony Davis in the paint. Misses the go-ahead 3. KCP hits a 3 on the other end. That's a 5-point swing, and the Lakers never looked back from there. Again, not blaming Jimmy Butler for the loss or anything like that, but what Anthony Davis did on the defensive end of the floor was really good. One of the best defensive final performances I think I've seen, and that block to dagger sequence was absolutely incredible. Now the final point. Who is the best teammate LeBron James has ever had? This is a conversation every time AD has a good game, right? Here's the thing. Who is the player that LeBron's game complements the most? Anthony Davis. Who is LeBron James' best teammate? It's Dwayne Wade, right? I'm not doubting the chemistry that Anthony Davis and LeBron James have. And again, a big man like this that can spread the floor, that can shoot, that can pass, that can rebound, again, shoot from long range, is perfect for LeBron James. And their games work so well together, right? From a game standpoint, I don't think LeBron has ever found a teammate where his game fits more with than Anthony Davis. But the on-court chemistry that Dwayne Wade and LeBron James had, I don't think will ever be matched. The lobs, the dunks, the passes, the highlight plays. I think just because they were such good friends, and I know LeBron and AD are friends, but what D. Wade and LeBron had from a relationship standpoint, both on and off the court, was something different, something special. And if you remember, LeBron's game and Dwayne Wade's game don't really fit that well. They're both slashing guys who play big, right? LeBron is big and plays big. Dwayne Wade's a little bit more undersized, but plays big with his athleticism, right? Anthony Davis, just from a pure basketball standpoint, fits perfectly with LeBron James. We know this. They've been playing so well together. I expect the series to end on Friday, but I still like Dwayne Wade as LeBron's best teammate. Anthony Davis as, not necessarily, I don't want to say a close second, but I guess a close second, right? I think he's above Kyrie. I think he's above Kevin Love. I think he's above Chris Bosh. And as terms of coaching, I think Frank Vogel's probably the second best coach LeBron's ever had. Seriously, I think Eric Spoelstra, then I think there's a pretty big gap. Then I think Vogel over Ty Lue. Let me know what you think about all those points. That's going to do it for this segment. Again, I expect the Los Angeles Lakers to win another championship. I think it'll end probably on Sunday. I like the Heat to win Friday, but I do think LeBron James will be a 4-time champion. If and when that does happen, I obviously will do the debate who is better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James, with updated stats and everything. One of my first episodes I did for the show was me explaining why I think Michael Jordan is still the GOAT. Will those opinions change if LeBron wins another finals and the finals MVP? Maybe, maybe not. That's for a later topic. That's going to do it for this segment. On the other side of the segment, I do want to focus more on the Miami Heat. Why, even though they're probably going to lose this series, they should still have their head up high. And that interesting quote that they're the free agent destination. What can they offer Giannis? Could they go after a guy like Victor Oladipo? We'll talk about everything Miami Heat right after this short break. And don't forget, after this segment, we'll be transitioning to football. My quarter of the season takeaways for each and every team. I might give you my top 10 teams in that segment just through default. I'll probably do that as well. And towards the end of the episode, we'll be breaking down the Thursday Night Football matchup as well as my top 10 teams. So at the very end of the episode, again, my top 10 teams in the NFL right now, and previewing the Thursday night game between the Bucs and Bears. And then the segment before that, after this segment, it will be, quarter of the season takeaways. We'll get into all that good stuff and the Miami Heat right after this short break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, I am your host, Alex Masfer. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode and to be continuing to listen to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Again, we really do appreciate it here at the GSMC Sports Podcast team. I just finished talking about the NBA Finals. LeBron James, the LA Lakers, 1 win away. LeBron is 1 win away from his 4th NBA championship as he continues to chase the greatest of all time, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Can he get it done? We'll see. I think he will get this 4th championship. I don't know what he will do beyond that, but I do think the Heat steal one on Friday. I think they're too resilient to go out like that. I think they will get one more on Friday. And then I think on Sunday, is when Game 6 would be. I think LeBron will close it up there. I don't think it gets to a 7th game, and I don't think the LA Lakers blow a 3-1 lead. I want to transition now back to the Miami Heat, who are obviously having a difficult time in this finals, trying to figure out a way to stop predominantly Anthony Davis, who has figured out a way to beat their zone. LeBron, they've done a good job defending him. I think they wish KCP, wasn't as good as he's been during this entire series as well. He's been phenomenal for them. And what the Heat were kind of doing in this series were kind of just doing everything you can to stop LeBron and AD and just saying, don't let anybody else, let the other players beat us. And that's what KCP's doing. KCP is beating the Miami Heat. He's had incredible three-point shooting. I think he hit the dagger 3. I know AD technically hit the dagger 3, but again, that sequence where AD or Jimmy Butler missed a 3 and then came down on the other end, and then KCP did hit a 3. That was a 4-point swing. The Heat could have been up 1, instead they were down 5. That's a big thing, and I think that was really when the game kind of ended. I think that came with about 3 minutes left or something like that, and then the Lakers kind of just took it and ran from there. Again, I expect them to finish it off. But for the Miami Heat, again, they have exceeded expectations. I don't think they were supposed to be a finals team this year. I think if you looked at them going into this year, how they were already exceeding expectations, you would have said their future's bright due to their cap space, due to their young players who will only get better. And I think you would have said that the Miami Heat would probably be playing in an NBA Finals in the next 4 years, right? After 2020 free agency, I expected the Heat to make the Finals at some point during then. I did not think it would be year 1 of this, not necessarily rebuild, but retool in this new plan, right? This new era, this Jimmy Butler era, this Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo era, right? But when Tyler Hero is averaging 17 points in the finals as a 20-year-old, that's crazy. Bam Adebayo being one of the best young players in the NBA, making that huge breakout leap this season. And now the process has only accelerated for the Miami Heat to a point where I think they should be favored to come out of the East next year, maybe Brooklyn, because if Kevin Durant comes back as the player he was, or still is if you want to consider it that, right? if Kevin Durant comes back and he doesn't look like he's aged a bit and everything from Golden State, then Kevin Durant and LeBron James, I think, are the two best players in the world. And I do think Steve Nash is going to be a successful head coach. He's a player's guy. He's extremely high basketball IQ, right? All these former players that coach, it's not a coincidence. A lot of these guys are guards, one-point guards, who have extremely high basketball IQ, guys like Jason Kidd, guys like Steve Nash now. So I think they will be good. I think they'll win the East from a record standpoint, or maybe I take that bet. I bet Milwaukee will win the East from a record standpoint, but deep in the playoffs, I expect it to be the Heat and the Nets next year, because I do expect some Heats to make some moves, which is what we'll talk about in this segment. Kevin O'Connor wrote an interesting article for The Ringer, and one of the biggest quotes was, league executives all believe that the Miami Heat are the overwhelming favorite for free agents and guys who want to get traded or leave in free agency or just get out of their current situation because of what they're doing. The Miami Heat are winning or exceeding expectations without a, quote-unquote, pure 100% superstar. I think Jimmy Butler's a top 10 player in the league and is a superstar. Not everybody agrees with that, right? They're doing it with culture. They have the coaching. They have the weather. They have, the city that you would want to play in. The no state income tax of Florida as well is a huge factor. And this team's having fun. It is no secret that Jimmy Butler is having a blast. Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, maybe not in this exact moment because they're down 3-1, but they're all having a good time. And all Jimmy Butler's been talking about is how much fun he's having playing basketball with these guys. I don't think a team in NBA history, maybe that Pistons team that won a championship, has played more like a team, like a collective group. This Miami Heat team all feels one, like one guy almost. Their ball movement is incredible. And Kevin O'Connor's article was, this Miami Heat team, and I agree with this, reminds him, and reminds me as well, of the Warriors right before they blew up, right before they became the dynasty. I'm not saying that the Miami Heat are going to go on and become a dynasty, but what Duncan Robinson's doing from a shooting standpoint, what Tyler Hero is doing as a rookie. Tyler Hero looks like Devin Booker 2.0. Keep that in mind. What Bam Adebayo is doing with the generational big man passing. Him and Jokic are the only two passing bigs that I think are changing the game from an assist standpoint, right? Jimmy Butler from a defensive and leadership standpoint. Eric Spoelstra is a championship caliber head coach. They're already exceeding expectations. Tyler Hero is only going to get better. Can they add a guy like Giannis in 2020 and become what the Golden State Warriors were, which is a dynasty? And that's going to come down to it, because if the Miami Heat get Giannis in 2020, they will be a dynasty. Is that the move they're going to make? I think they're going to do everything in their power to make that move. I think they'll make moves before that because, again, there's no guarantee that he's going to do that. I don't expect Giannis, though, when he's offered that max contract extension, to accept it. I think either way, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. Because of COVID and everything, I'm pretty sure the salary cap actually took or will take a dip. So either way, he's not going to get as much money, I think, as he will the following year in 2021 when he wants to be an actual free agent, when he's an unrestricted free agent. So I think either way, even if he does want to stay in Milwaukee, I think he's going to wait another year. The question for the Miami Heat is, can they pull this off? Can they get Giannis Antetokounmpo? Now, do they necessarily not need him in order to win a championship? I don't think so. I think the team that they have currently constructed is only going to get better. Jimmy Butler, this is kind of the best we've seen him. If he can keep this up for another year or two, that'd be great. Tyler Hero's only going to get better. I expect Tyler Hero to be the leading scorer of the Miami Heat next season. Bam Adebayo's only going to get better. I think there's going to be a point in time where Bam Adebayo is the best big man in the league and is also a Defensive Player of the Year candidate year in, year out, All-NBA defense, obviously, as well this year. I think that'll continue throughout his career. Can they add a couple more guys? Yeah, I think they need another guy that can create his own shot. Personally, I think Bam and Hero can create their own shot. I don't think they're maybe as effective as Jimmy Butler is. I look at a guy like Bradley Beal. I'd love to have him on this Heat team, but that would require giving up Hero, and I'm just not ready to do that right now. Tyler Hero, with all this, I know this has been a lot about Hero. It is about Bam too. But how valuable this experience is of getting kind of pushed around a little bit, right? Tyler Hero's been getting pushed around a little bit this series. I mean, still averaging almost 18 in the NBA Finals is ridiculous for a 20-year-old rookie. But getting pushed around a little bit, now he knows what this level of competition is like. This is going to do wonders for Tyler Hero and do wonders for all these guys, just going forward, all these young players that they have, Bam, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, just going forward, that championship experience, that championship pedigree. Jimmy Butler, to an extent, this is his first NBA Finals. Now he knows what to expect coming into maybe next year's Finals or the year after, right? Whatever the Heat want to do. So I wouldn't necessarily give up a Hero or a Bam for a guy like Bradley Beal. But what I would do if I was the Miami Heat is I would go heavily after Victor Oladipo. He seems like the move to make. I think what the Heat are going to do next season, in order from a coming from a starting lineup perspective, I think Duncan Robinson was a great starter this year. I think he's going to turn into a bench 3-point specialist, only because I think teams have started to figure him out this offseason, or not this offseason, but throughout this playoffs. They know he's a legitimate threat. They go after him. His presence on the court just creates gravity. He gets guys open because guys are double teaming him. They're rushing him off his 3-point spot, and that creates open passing lanes for guys like Butler, for Crowder, for Hero, specifically for Jay Crowder. We've seen Jay Crowder probably attempt the most threes out of anybody on this Heat team this playoffs, which is kind of crazy to think about. But going into next year, I bet Duncan Robinson becomes more of a bench player. I bet Hero becomes the starting guard throughout. I think he's going to be their starting point guard. I don't necessarily know if he'll necessarily play as the point guard position. I think they use so much passing through Bam and Butler anyway that he's not necessarily playing point guard, but just as a scoring guard. Just pretty much a 2-guard playing the 1-guard standpoint. But if you can get Victor Oladipo, I would trade Kendrick Nunn, Olynyk a first. Maybe throw in a guy like KZ Okpala if you have to get it done that way, even though I've heard from Heat fans that he is baby Giannis, that he's going to be really good. He's another long wing defender they drafted out of Stanford as a developmental piece. I could see him being thrown into an Indiana Pacer trade. But if you get Victor Oladipo, who again averaged 23 points in the one playoff series he played in this year, again, it was against the Miami Heat, they got swept. He was definitely Indiana's best player throughout that series, maybe Malcolm Brogdon. If you could run up a lineup next year of Hero, Oladipo, Butler, I believe they're going to re-sign Jay Crowder to a 1-year balloon deal. I think they're going to do the same for Goran Dragic. Keep Jay Crowder at the 4, Bam Adebayo at the 5. I think you've just improved your team from this year, which is an NBA Finals team. And I think that he could get back to the Finals next year with Hero being the leading scorer and Oladipo hopefully averaging at least 20 a game, Butler getting his 20 a game. I think Bam next year is going to average at least 18 points a game if he continues. Not that he's not aggressive, but he does into the most aggressive each and every game, right? Maybe if they want to go that route. I think Hero is the most aggressive scorer on the team. I think Hero is honestly going to average 23 next year. I really do believe that. I think that he could get back to the Finals next year, and we could have a rematch between AD and the Lakers and the new and improved Miami Heat, adding Victor Oladipo, another guy who can create his own shot going forward. That is the route I would go if I were Miami. And the thing is if you acquire Victor Oladipo, you can still go after a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo in 2021, right? That is your team still. You would still have the cap space due to bird rights and everything like that. And if in 2021 the Miami Heat can do what Kevin O'Connor and some other league executives believe that the Miami Heat are going to do in 2021, have Victor Oladipo, right, this offseason, and get Giannis Antetokounmpo in 2021, we're looking at the next NBA dynasty for the next 5 to 7 years. We just are. I mean, on top of the young players and shooting that they have, can you imagine if the Miami Heat roll out a lineup of Tyler Hero for shooting, Victor Oladipo shooting, Jimmy Butler not so much, Giannis, and Bam Adebayo? Who's stopping that team? Nobody, right? So that's obviously the plan for Pat Riley and the Miami Heat. Can they get it done? I'm not sure. I'm not as sold as I am on Victor Oladipo of definitely wanting to leave his situation than Giannis. It wouldn't surprise me if Giannis was the type of guy, like he said, no matter what, I'm riding or dying with the Milwaukee Bucks. This is my team. This is my city. I could totally see him going that route. Victor Oladipo, I know he's been denying the rumors recently, but the rumors have been going on for so long. It's the worst kept secret in the league that Victor Oladipo wants to be a Miami Heat player. I expect it to happen. I think Nunn, Olynyk, a first, would do it. Maybe throw in Okpala or maybe throw in some second-round picks. But getting Victor Oladipo would be huge for this Miami Heat team, with the eyes on the prize obviously being Giannis in 2021. All right, that's going to do it for this segment about the Miami Heat. After this short break, my quarter of the season NFL takeaways. What teams are legit? What teams are not? What are my biggest takeaways through 4 weeks, a quarter of the way through the NFL season? We'll get into all that good stuff as well. And don't forget, at the end of the episode, I'll be giving you my top 10 teams through a quarter of the NFL season, as well as previewing tonight's matchup between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Chicago Bears. I think one of the best Thursday Night Football matchups of the year. We'll get into all that good stuff right after this short break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to Extreme Cage Fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, I am your host, Alex Masfer. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode and to be continuing to listen to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We really do appreciate it here at the GSMC Sports Podcast team. I just finished talking about the Miami Heat, the interesting quotes that people have been talking about, saying how the Miami Heat might be poised to be the next NBA dynasty, be the top of the NBA world once again. Maybe not this year. I think the Lakers will get it this year. But in the future, if they can land a guy like Victor Oladipo, I think they're right back in the finals next year. Maybe even without Victor Oladipo, they're right back in the finals next year, depending on how Hero and Bam develop. If they can get a guy like Giannis in 2021, I think it's over for the league, and the Heat will just be rolling from there. I want to transition now for the rest of the episode to the National Football League. We are officially a quarter of the way through of the NFL season. Obviously, there's been some scares with COVID and everything like that, specifically with Tennessee and New England, but the NFL is still moving. They are still going along. I am worried about it, obviously. I don't like to see, obviously, the COVID pandemic take over some NFL teams, but I do have faith that the NFL, similar to how the MLB did get through, if you remember the Miami Marlins, had a huge epidemic, worse than what Tennessee had. They got through it. I think football will get through it as long as the proper safety guidelines are taken for everybody. I do hope that as well. But the NFL is moving along. We are 4 weeks through on the season. I want to talk about some of my biggest takeaways through the NFL season, and a lot of them are some of the teams that I think are better than their record shows, and a lot of teams are worse than their record shows. So let's get right into it. My biggest takeaway, and this is obvious, my biggest takeaway through the entire NFL season, a quarter way through so far, is the Dallas Cowboys are not a good football team. They are not. Dak Prescott is leading the league in, I think, passing yards. He's leading the league in passing yards. The Dallas Cowboys are 1-3. They just got smoked by the Cleveland Browns. And honestly, I put it on Mike McCarthy is who I put it on, because I can't put it on Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's playing great. I understand he's been playing through behind a lot. I think they do not have a good defense. I think they have one of the worst defense in the NFL. I think their defense is as bad as teams like the Jets, teams like, the Washington football team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, these teams that are going to be, fighting for Trevor Lawrence. The Dallas Cowboys have it just like that. They have a defense that is just as poor as that. They have a great receiving core. CeeDee Lamb has been incredible. Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, Zeke, Dak, all these guys. Look at our offense, and you lose to Cleveland. Right, this Dallas Cowboys team is not good. Best case scenario for the Dallas Cowboys is 8-8. Seriously, if they somehow manage to go, 5-5 the rest of the way here, I'd be surprised. 5-5 would put them, 6-8. If you can go 7-5 throughout the rest of the year, maybe. That's the best case scenario, in my opinion, for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't see that. I think the Dallas Cowboys are not winning their division. I don't know who's winning the NFC least, I would say, but Dallas Cowboys not one of them. I put it on Mike McCarthy. I think the hire should have been Lincoln Riley. I think Lincoln Riley might actually be regretting a little bit not, considering an NFL job a little bit more. He's off to an 0-2 start in Oklahoma. I think he would have been better as the Dallas Cowboys head coach. I think the offense would have been even better than it is under Mike McCarthy. And I think he would have found a better defensive coordinator. The Dallas Cowboys defense is awful. The secondary, I think, might be the worst in the league. And it's not going to get better for Dallas. It's going to get worse before it gets better. They should sign Earl Thomas. I understand that he's got some locker room problems. I think the Houston Texans voted that he should not be signed after they were about to sign him, or that they were going to sign him, right? They ended up not signing him. What's interesting, though, is the Dallas Cowboys could use safety help, secondary help, and they still won't sign Earl Thomas. I would do it. I understand he's got some problems. That's what I would do if I was Dallas, because you got to do something, man. They should have traded for Jamal Adams. I don't know. Their secondary is awful. They lost Byron Jones to Miami, and Byron Jones was a good player on a bad secondary. There's not even a single good player now on this terrible secondary for the Dallas Cowboys. Their linebackers are dealing with injuries. This defense is terrible. The Dallas Cowboys are not a good team, and I think that goes on Mike McCarthy. Second takeaway, the NFC East, this has to do with the Cowboys, is the worst division in football, and it's not close. This might be the worst division in NFL history this year. The Giants are awful. The Washington football team is awful. The Eagles this year are awful, and the Cowboys this year are awful. Seriously, the Cowboys could go 8-8. Best case scenario for the Dallas Cowboys, they go 8-8 and somehow win this division, and they get smacked in the first round. That's just how it is. This division's terrible. You saw Dwayne Haskins just got benched, not even to second string. He got demoted to third string. Might not even be active for the game. Ron Rivera going with Kyle Allen. So it looks like the Dwayne Haskins era is over before it even started in Washington. He could be traded. Daniel Jones has a worse passer rating than Dwayne Haskins, and also has had more turnovers through I think it's through more turnovers through the first year, or through, what is it? I think Dwayne Haskins has played 16 games now officially, because he missed 2 games at the beginning of last year, right? And I think 3 games in total, 1 for an injury and 2 for just not playing yet. Eli was starting. I think through 16 games, I don't think any quarterback has had more turnovers. I think he's had double the turnovers as Jameis Winston did through his first 16 games. He's not getting benched. He's leading the Saquon-less Giants, who are terrible. Carson Wentz has completely forgotten how to play the NFL quarterback position. I thought Carson Wentz was a special type of quarterback. Ever since that MVP season, that pretty much, or should have been MVP season, he didn't win it because he obviously tore his ACL. Ever since that ACL injury, Carson Wentz has not been himself. And he's been declining each and every year, including this year, where Carson Wentz does not look like the best quarterback in his division. Dak Prescott does. And despite Dak Prescott finally looking like the best quarterback in his division, and finally looking back Carson Wentz, the Cowboys have the worst defense in the league. Their offensive line is banged up, and they're not winning any football games either. So again, the Eagles, I believe, win this division right now at 1-2-1 or something crazy like that. That's my second takeaway, that this team is not good. My third takeaway: the MVP race is going to come down to 2 people at the end of the season, and they're not Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. I think Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson are having great, incredible seasons, but they're not exceeding any expectations that they've already had on them. Not that they're great players, MVP caliber players, they both possibly are. But the MVP conversation down the line is not going to come down to those 2. I think it comes down to 3 people, and 2 of them have an actual shot of winning it. I think Tom Brady will be in the in the MVP discussion. I don't think he's going to win it. I think it's coming down to Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, the 2 guys with the highest passer rating for a career in NFL history. Both of them are looking out to prove people wrong. Russell Wilson is clearly going for MVP. I've told you since the beginning of this season, this is Russell Wilson's year. This is Seattle's year. They're playing incredible. Best offense in the NFL by far. They're dealing with a Jamal Adams injury on defense. When he gets back, their defense will be bolstered. I expect Pete Carroll to be wheeling and dealing at the trade deadline, getting more defensive line help, getting more secondary help for Russell Wilson, maybe at the boundary cornerback position, maybe also some pass rushers as well. If anybody becomes available, I expect Pete Carroll to be all over that. They need more help on the defensive end. And Russell Wilson's going for MVP. And, of course, Aaron Rodgers, 4-0 as the Green Bay Packer quarterback. They drafted his replacement. He's proving everybody else wrong. He's cocky this year. He's going on the Pat McAfee show, telling guys, a below-average season for me is career years for 99% of the dudes in this league. I love cocky Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is a bad man, and he is going for the MVP this season. That is another takeaway. Another takeaway for me through a quarter of the way of the NFL season. The Tampa Bay Buccaneer thing is going to work, man, and is it working? They, of course, started 0-1 after that loss to the New Orleans Saints. Everybody was screaming out, the sky is falling. Tom Brady last week, 369 yards, 5 passing touchdowns. 3-1 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They look incredible. I believe they'll be going to the NFC Championship game this year, and I can't wait to see them face, I believe it'll be the Seattle Seahawks. I believe that's what we're going to get in the NFC Championship game this year. But yeah, this Tom Brady thing, Tom Brady's not washed. The Buccaneers are going to work. They're going to go to the NFC Championship game, maybe even go to the Super Bowl. All those people that thought this wasn't going to work are completely dead wrong. That's another takeaway through a week of the season. What else do I have as a big takeaway? When it comes to the Cleveland Browns, they are exceeding expectations when it comes, at least for me, they're exceeding expectations. They are 3-1. This team loves to run the football, whether it be with Kareem Hunt or Nick Chubb, who's dealing with an injury right now, obviously, but Kareem Hunt as well. I believe Kareem Hunt is also injured, but I believe he'll be okay to go. They were also running the ball a lot with Dearness Johnson. Either way, they love to run the football. They have the offensive line that loves to run the football as well. They're a better run line, I believe, than passing line, which is not something I would have expected. Odell Beckham Jr. looks to be back this season. I think that's the main reason why Cleveland's 3-1. OBJ looks like New York Giant OBJ right now. Jarvis Landry having an incredible season. Austin Hooper recently found his way into the end zone for Cleveland. Cleveland is a better team than I expected. I think they're going to lock up second place in their division, maybe even compete with Baltimore, seriously. I think a little bit, some teams are starting to figure Baltimore out, specifically on the defensive end. Kansas City kind of showed that. I think New England will show that when they play them later in the year as well. I really do believe that Cleveland has a chance to not necessarily win this division, but keep it close. Another takeaway, New England, Cam Newton is legit. Just talked about how Tom Brady, it's working. Cam Newton in New England, it is working. Yes, they're 2-2. Cam got COVID, missed the game against Kansas City, and they still almost won that game with Brian Hoyer and Jared Stidham and that quarterback. If Cam plays that game, I think they won it. Seriously, I think if Cam wins, or Cam plays that game, I think they beat Kansas City. New England's legit. They're still a threat in the AFC. That's another takeaway of mine. And the final takeaway that I have is rookie quarterbacks galore. Does the rookie class look good, man? I mean, Joe Burrow, I thought he would look good. He looks better than I thought. He finally got his first win. I believe, what is he? Is he 1-2-1, I believe? So Joe Burrow right now has the same record as Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles. You take that if you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan. Joe Burrow has been incredible in his last game. He had 300 yards and a touchdown. I love everything about Joe Burrow this year. If Joe Mixon can have the type of game he had against Jacksonville consistently throughout the season, the Bengals are only going to get more and more victories. You want to see a guy like Joe Mixon have 151 yards. Not necessarily he needs to get that every single game, but giving Joe Burrow a good run game will take the pressure off him. And my final takeaway for this segment, man, does Justin Herbert look better than I thought? Justin Herbert, for me, was going to be a more accurate version of the Bills' version of Josh Allen. I thought he'd be pretty good, not great. I thought he'd be in that average range. He looks like a stud. He looks like a star. And their record does not show how good as a team they are. They've lost some really close games to Tampa Bay and some other good teams, and the Chiefs as well. I think they lost to the Chiefs and the Buccaneers by, I think, by one score. They faced the Saints on Monday night. I love everything about Justin Herbert, man. He's been playing like a stud. I need to see Tua Tagovailoa with the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are 1-3. I think it's time, man. They almost started Tua, I think, this Sunday against San Francisco. Right now, the starter is Flores has announced that it's Fitzpatrick going this Sunday, like I just said, against San Francisco. If he does not have a good game, I think we're going to Tua soon. Tua sooner rather than later. I mean, if Herbert looks good and Burrow looks good, I cannot wait to see how Tua Tagovailoa looks. And again, my final takeaway is everything about the rookie quarterbacks. It looks great. Younger quarterbacks are looking phenomenal. Quickly, I'll just go through some other takeaways. Bills look legit. Josh Allen looks better than I thought. I'm still not 100% sold on Josh Allen, but I am sold on this Bills team. I think they win the AFC East. And finally, as well, some guys, man, I feel bad for I feel bad for Deshaun Watson, coach fired. Texans are not very good this year. Would have liked to see Deshaun Watson in the playoffs this year. That's not going to happen. But yeah, that's all my takeaways this year as well. The Cardinals are 2-2 this year. They need to rebound. And the Carolina Panthers, man, I told you their offense was going to win them a couple games. They're 2-2 as well. Those are my takeaways through a quarter of the way of the NFL season. Let me know what you guys think. What are your biggest takeaways through the NFL season so far, a quarter of the way? And I think the biggest one for me is that the Dallas Cowboys are not a good team, and this Tampa Bay thing is definitely going to work. Not just now, but probably for the future if Tampa Bay or if Tom Brady wants to hang around and continue on to play. All right, that's going to do it for this segment. On the other side of this segment, top 10 NFL teams. I just gave you my biggest takeaways through a quarter of the way of the season. But what are my actual top 10 NFL teams a quarter of the way through the year? I'll be doing that, as well as who do I like tonight against the Buccaneers versus the Bears, Foles versus Brady. Again, who do I like in that game and why? We'll get into all that good stuff for the final segment of today's episode right after this short break.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here. The GSMC Sports Podcast, again brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alex Masser. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode and to be continuing to listen to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We really do appreciate it here at the GSMC Sports Podcast team. I just finished talking about my biggest takeaways through a quarter of the way through the NFL season. I want to transition now, still talk about the NFL, but talk about my top 10 teams now through a quarter of the way of the NFL season. Who do I believe are the best 10 teams in football right now? I think there's going to be some surprises for you guys. but this is what I have going so far through the quarter of the way through the season, my top 10 NFL teams, and then right after this, we'll talk about the Thursday night football matchup. At number 10, I have the Los Angeles Rams, man. They have been better than the Arizona Cardinals, not something that I expected. They've been the second best team in this division, better than San Francisco and Arizona. Sean McVay, man, he never went away. I don't want to say he's back because he had a down year last year. The Todd Gurley cloud really loomed over this team. Jared Goff is having a good season. There are good receivers on this team. There's a good offensive game plan for this team, and this defense is playing much improved, and guys like Jalen Ramsey are playing with a lot of confidence. Rams coming at number 10 for me. And number 9, the Buffalo Bills. Yes, they're 4-0. Yes, they've been fantastic. Why they're not higher on this list, I still don't trust Josh Allen. I understand he's having a phenomenal start to the season, and honestly, he's looking like an MVP candidate, and I am not the biggest Josh Allen supporter, so I want to give him credit for that. I'm just still not sold. I need to see more. Not necessarily more stats, just need to see this against better teams. I need Josh Allen to do this against the Patriots, against the Ravens, against the Chiefs, before I put the Bills as a top 5 football team. That's just how we're doing. He's been beating up on bad teams like the Dolphins, teams like the Jets, teams like the Raiders, who are not a great team either. Again, the Bills need to do better. Again, not that they need to do better, they need to do this against better teams, as how I should do it. If they can do it against Tennessee, it's unclear if they're even going to play due to the COVID thing going on with Tennessee. But if they do play, if they could beat a team like Tennessee, that'd be huge, who's also on this list. I just don't know if they can. All right, number 8 is the New England Patriots. Their defense is still phenomenal. Cam Newton's dealing with COVID, but when Cam Newton is playing for this Patriots team, they're a good team. They could hang with anybody. Seriously, I think they would have beaten Kansas City, man. The only reason why I don't have them higher on this list, again, it's still early on in the season. They need to do this against other teams. Cam needs to continue to get better, stay healthy, recover back from COVID, how he looked post-COVID, everything like that. But still, the New England Patriots still the best coach team in the league, still probably the best defense in the league, maybe them or Pittsburgh, I would say, or Baltimore as well. And of course, when Cam Newton plays, this team is physical. They run a lot and they run down your throat. I have New England coming in at number 8. Number 7 is Tennessee. They obviously had a quote-unquote bye week due to everything going on with them. They're still 3-0. Tannehill looks to have continued to recapture this magic. I think he just really fits well with this team. Derrick Henry picking up right where he left off. But the difference is I think this Tennessee defense is better than it was last year. I think their receiving core is improving. Their young guys like A.J. Brown are taking another step forward. I have the Titans coming in at number 7. And number 6, the Cleveland Browns, man. They have been a top 6 team in football this year. 3-1. Their offense has been phenomenal. Really well balanced, complementary football on offense, running the ball and passing the ball well. And if Odell Beckham is going to continue to play like this throughout the entire season and look like the OBJ we all know and love from his New York Giant days, then all of a sudden the Cleveland Browns are a legitimate threat in the AFC and they're making serious noise. Baker Mayfield hasn't had a great season, not had a poor season. He's been doing his job. He's been fitting the system well, setting up the offense well as well. So I like what I'm seeing from Baker Mayfield so far this year, and that's just the way I'm viewing it right now. I think that he's looking fantastic. I think the Browns are looking great. I think Kevin Stefanski was officially the right hire to make. The Browns have been a top 6 team in football this year, folks. They're 3-1. I can't wait to watch their game. I believe, who are they playing this week? The Cleveland Browns are playing the Colts, 3-1 versus 3-1. I like Cleveland to win that game. I cannot wait to watch Cleveland going forward. They're entertaining, and they're actually finally good. So again, Cleveland 3-1, been a top 6 team in football. They come in at number 6 for me. Number 5 is the division counterpart, the Baltimore Ravens. They are 3-1. Only reason why they're not higher is I think that they've taken a little bit of a step back from last season, as in they're not surprising anybody anymore. Last year they were surprising everybody with how good Lamar was. Now everybody knows how good Lamar is. They found out some ways to stop him. You have to get a lead on Baltimore. Again, if you get a lead on Baltimore, they don't come back. The Ravens don't come back down from a lot. That's just not how they play. That's not their style. Nonetheless, they're still a top 5 talented team in the league. Still a top 5 team in the league, too. I would pick them to beat 95% of the league. Coming at number 5, Baltimore Ravens. Number 4 is the undefeated Green Bay Packers. Again, Aaron Rodgers going for an MVP season. Again, without Devontae Adams, without his 2 best receivers, his tight end is doing okay. He's doing pretty good. I like him a lot. Aaron Jones has been great, though. So their defense has stepped up as well. I like the Packers a lot this year. I think Aaron Rodgers is back. I thought they would take a step back after going 13-3 last year. I appear to be wrong. They might even go 14-2 this year. I like what I'm seeing from the Packers a lot. Aaron Rodgers is playing way better this year than he did last year. Maybe it's the extra motivation because this team drafted Jordan Love. Maybe it's just because he wants to prove everybody that he can still play so he can go to another team next offseason or get traded when they eventually give the keys to Jordan Love. But if Aaron Rodgers is going to play like this, man, and you're a Packers fan, I would be a little bit nervous that, wow, we're really going to maybe give up on this guy, this Aaron Rodgers. to go towards a guy like Jordan Love. I mean, this Aaron Rodgers is looking a lot better than Brett Favre did in his last days as a Green Bay Packer uniform. I don't think Brett Favre was putting up MVP numbers like this. Aaron Rodgers is going for MVP. He's going for another Super Bowl. Packers come in at number 4 for me in top 10 teams in the league. Number 3, Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers, man. Tom Brady led the Buccaneers to a 3-1 record so far. They had that one close loss to New Orleans. They've been really good ever since then. Their offense has looked phenomenal. Tom Brady is throwing the ball downfield with accuracy and precision, doing all this without Chris Godwin. O.J. Howard is out now as well. Mike Evans is dealing with injuries, and Tampa Bay still keeps finding ways to win. That's that Tom Brady mentality. Don't worry about the picks that Tom Brady's throwing. Everybody throws interceptions. As long as you win games, it doesn't really freaking matter. And that's what Tom Brady does best, is win football games. And number 2, obviously, is Seattle for me. I think Russell Wilson's going to win the MVP this year. I think he's going to the Super Bowl. Best offense in the league because Pete Carroll is finally letting Russ cook, as they like to say. If the defense can improve, if they can add a piece or two at the deadline, I'd love what the Seattle team is doing. If they can just add a piece or two on defense specifically going forward, this Seattle team could definitely get to the Super Bowl once again. And number 1, no surprise to anybody, is the Kansas City Chiefs. The best quarterback in the league is getting better each and every week. Every time I watch Patrick Mahomes, I think he's gotten better. Seriously, that's just how I'm looking at it. Every time I see Patrick Mahomes, he's only gotten better. I think they're undefeated, I believe. He's been absolutely phenomenal throughout the entire year. They're 4-0. I expect them to return to the Super Bowl. Mahomes has incredible stats once again. And what else is new, though? Best quarterback in the league, one of the best coaches in the league, and Andy Reid, and their defense is playing out of their mind as well. I love what the Chiefs are doing this year. Again, they're on the cusp of a potential dynasty. They are still the best team in the league for me. Quickly, we have, I think, one of the better Thursday Night Football matchups tonight. Buccaneers, Tampa Bay versus Nick Foles and the Chicago Bears. I think the Bears are a better team with Nick Foles. I think the Bears are going to be a playoff team. I would have put them at probably 12th best team in the league in that top 10 list. I can't wait to see tonight's game. I like Tampa Bay, but I think it'll be closer than people think. I think Nick Foles is going to show out on primetime against Tom Brady again. I think Chicago will dip to 3-2, but I still think Chicago's a very good team, second best team in that division. I think they'll make that extra playoff spot that's in both divisions now, the NFC and the AFC. I like, for a score prediction, I think I like Tampa Bay probably 30-24 is what I would say for the Bears versus Tampa Bay game tonight. Let me know who you guys have between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Nick Foles-led Chicago Bears. Should be a great game. One of the better Thursday Night Football matchups going forward. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast. Again, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Do not forget to subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a positive or just a 5-star review or a positive review in general. On top of all that as well, do not also forget to follow us on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Again, I have been your host, Alex Masper. Thank you so much for watching, or I should say listening to today's episode, and I will see you all in the next one.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.